Yeah,
My grandfather.
a couple family members, and they don't even like talking about it. So that's what makes it um, just that much more like you know
Yeah.
meaningful. They don't even want to talk about it. So
Yeah.
they'll talk
Um,
about small stuff, but not really the hard stuff they went through.
mhm.
My grandfather was he went to residential school. I had great grandparents who went to residential school. So yeah, I had quite a few family members. But I guess what's different in Gunawag is that they were welcomed in at one point. So even my father had a I think it was a nun as a teacher. So even my father who's only 48 years old, like just think about that. That's not too long. That's not too long ago. Like we're talking like 30 years ago. I don't know, something like that. But he would tell me stories of him. There was one story that sticks out to me is that there was a priest who was actually gonna bring him to a they call it the boiler room. So, and he was gonna be brought in there, but thankfully somebody who goes to Longhouse went up to the priest and told him like, no, like you can't touch him. But for those of the younger ones who were Catholic, yeah, Catholic, they were allowed to be brought into that room. And I don't know what goes on in that room. It was never said what happened to that room, but all I knew is that it wasn't something good. And that's what my father said, because either kids would come out crying or I don't know. I don't know what happened in that room, but it wasn't anything good, that's for sure.
My grandma kind of had the same experience too. She went to Cattery, and she would tell stories, and one of them that stuck out with me was they used to have this like rock wall,
Yeah.
and when she got in trouble by the nun, she would rub her hands and her knuckles on these walls. So by the
Yeah.
time she got to go see the nun, her hands were already numb, and she wouldn't feel any of like the straps or whatever they did to them. Like her hands were already
Yeah.
numb, so she wouldn't feel anything. I know that like Salisbury's not considered a residential school, but it is like a boarding school. And like how did you and your family like come to a decision to like be like, all right, let's go, like we can hop on this boarding school and we can go and trust the process of living out there and moving away from the community and all that.
Yeah, well, the difference between going to Salisbury and what an original residential or boarding school, the difference is that I chose to go to to boarding school. Like
Yeah.
our children, they didn't have the opportunity to choose. They were taken from their homes. So that's a big difference right there. I chose not only to further myself in education, but all like but also like lacrosse.
Struggle at first, being the only native at the school, right? And you hear all the smart remarks and stuff, but I know after a while you get used to it. And
I didn't. I didn't trust it. Like in all honesty, that was like one of the biggest things I was afraid of was, I guess, kind of like losing that sense of who I am as a Gahaga man, or at the time a kid. So I I was afraid of, I guess, not forgetting, but I guess losing some of that when I came here, when I attended Salisbury. So, but at the end of the day, like when I look back, if anything, like under, understanding that really kept me even more grounded to who I am and where I come from. Like I made sure when I went to Salisbury, I made sure I didn't forget who I was. So I guess that's one way I can put it.
Um, you know, it was tough at first, and you kind of get used to it. And I mean, Bobby Wynn helped me out tremendously, and they understood that I was going for, you know, my career and school. So that overall, they were proud of my decision, and I was the only one to do it so far. And but it was worth it.
So knowing that like lacrosse is the creators game,
Yeah.
and like we know the history of lacrosse, but many people don't know why we play or
Oh
the
yeah.
the history behind it. And do you think like part of the reason could be because we lost a lot of it at residential school?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
No, that's important. You know, like not only to get the message that lacrosse was invented by us, the Native Americans, but even more important is, you know, in the residential schools, you know, lost children, found children. I think that's the most important thing where people need to know. And yeah, a lot of them don't even know that the game originated from the Native Americans. So a lot of trauma, right? I mean, a lot of them don't even ever recover from it. So it's just, you know, it's a sad thing, and you just gotta continue as, you know, younger generations and try to help them out as much as we can with our family members that have been a part of it.
Done is done. So it's more about how can we educate those, like, say, for example, kids your grade. How can we educate those, or the ones at Salisbury right now, or boarding schools throughout the country? How can we educate them about, or just schools in general? How can we educate the children about what truly happened? How can we have those uncomfortable conversations of what happened in those schools? Like you're gonna have to face it. Like priests molested our children. Like police, like a priest pushed children down the stairs. They threw them out windows. I heard stories like that. So it's more about like accepting what happened is fact and it's true. Like there's no hiding from it. And how are we going to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations moving forward?
Yeah.
Hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo,